I asked you to name the most iconic fighter planes of World War II, you'd probably say, I don't know, the P-51 Mustang, maybe the F-4U Corsair. However, I think there's another one that's probably more famous than these two, probably even more beautiful than these two, and has been stars of multiple Hollywood movies, including most recently the movie Dunkirk, and of course the classic, The Battle of Britain. It's an airplane that I think uniformly has been recognized as just one of the most beautiful shapes ever created. And it's one that I don't have anywhere in my RC collection. Obviously it's not a Mustang, obviously it's not a Corsair, so what is it? No surprise if you read the title of the video, the Spitfire. Now, picking out a Spitfire relatively should be a simple process, right? You simply pick the one you want, it fits in your price range, and you order it, and it arrives at your door. However, I've been doing research on Spitfires, so really since the movie Dunkirk came out, I actually came out of the movie theater and started my research on what Spitfire works the best for me with my unique set of criteria. So the first one of the set of criteria that I have established to select what Spitfire works best for me is the size. I wanted to be limited to no more than 1200 millimeters because that's the size that fits into my car without taking the wings off. And I've learned taking the wings off is a great way to not fly your airplane. For whatever reason, if I have to take the wings off the plane, I tend to leave it in the garage and not take it to the flying field. The Timber's this way, both my B-17s are that way. And the planes that always get flown are the smaller wingspan planes. So 1200 millimeters is the max wingspan that I'm going to be looking at. So that right away gets rid of the 1600 millimeter flight line Spitfire Mark 9 and the 1450 millimeter Avios, and I think that's a Mark 5. So that brings us down into we have the flight line, 1200. We have the Durafly, the E-Flight. Some old Park Zone ones, and the Dynam. I have a Dynam PBY, and I'm not happy with the quality of that plane at all. It seems to be that it's just not really a great airplane, so I just wasn't interested in buying another Dynam product, so we can cross those off the list. I also really wanted it has to run on 3S, so 2200 3S batteries, so I have plenty of those from all my other airplanes. So that gets rid of the Flightline RC Mark 9, which is an absolutely stunning Spitfire. And if I had 4S batteries or was willing to add more 4S batteries to my collection, I think the Flightline one would be a really good one to go with. I also really wanted an early war Spitfire. I try to buy my airplanes so they represent significant points in World War II. And I don't have anything that really represents the Battle of Britain. So I really wanted an early model Spitfire. So that gets rid of the E-Flight model because that's a late model with a ridiculously small 5-bladed prop and an oversized spinner, and I just don't really care for the look of that nose. I wanted the short nose and prefer a 3-blade prop like the early Mark 1, Mark 2s, and all the way up to the Mark 5. And I thought about buying an old Park Zone one. I really wanted a Park Zone. I knew how well they fly. They're pretty legendary. They have the look that I wanted to. They have a Mark 2 that's just stunning. They have a Mark 9 that's a little bit more complex of an airplane, but they've been out of production for a long time, and if you find one used, a lot of times the shipping to get one to your house is more than the entire airplane would have been new. So, and also spare parts are relatively difficult to find. So by process of elimination, and I actually have quite an extensive matrix that goes more in depth than that, but I decided to settle on the Durafly model here, and this is the Mark 5B Spitfire. Durafly had a Mark 1 that's absolutely beautiful, but it's out of production, and I have not been able to find one. So the next closest thing was the Mark 5. It's also important to know that a lot of people confuse the word and they call it the MK5B. No, that is incorrect. This is a Mark 5B. MK is Mark. Just like a Lincoln, Mark 8, Mark 7, those are MK, it's considered Mark. 5 is the 5th generation of design evolution. However, the Spitfire didn't necessarily always follow chronological order. For some reason, they kind of bounced around. And the B stands for a B-style wing, and we'll kind of get into that more a little bit later. But right now, we're going to kind of get into the unboxing video of the Durafly Spitfire here. And then we're going to kind of come back with multiple series of videos in which we're going to explore a little bit more of the history of the Spitfire. We're going to modify this one a little bit in the appearance, and we're going to go into a little bit more of the history of that particular aircraft. Some modifications we're going to make to the aircraft to kind of make it a little bit better. And then finally we'll do a maiden flight. And I'm hoping to get all this done and fly it here in mid-September, which would be kind of the climatic end of the Battle of Britain, which started in, I believe, either late June, early July time frame of the summer of 1940. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's get this box opened up. All right, so right away we have the box open. We can start to take a look inside here and see what we got. Everything is nicely wrapped in this type of, I don't know, light foam to kind of protect it. We have a scale 3-bladed propeller, which in my opinion the Spitfire looks the best with a 3-bladed propeller on it. Unfortunately, they only give you one of these, and they are on back order from HobbyKing. And one of the problems with always buying a HobbyKing airplane is spare parts. In some ways, I think the Park Zone plane that's been out of production now for years has a better spare part availability than the Durafly. So hopefully I'm not taking too big of a risk here. So we got the prop out. That's the first thing that's easy to get out. So let's go ahead and set this off to the side. All right, we got that out of the way. We can open up more of the this kind of protective wrap here. We have one of the radiator scoops. The Mark V only had the one radiator scoop on the side, where the Mark IX has it on both sides. Part of me really likes the look of having the symmetrical large radiator scoops hanging down below. But if you want to be accurate and you're building an early model Spitfire, you only get one of these. We have the instruction manual, which looks to be very well done. This is the first time I've really kind of seen it and kind of flipping through it here. I have looked at it online, so I'm at least a little familiar with a PDF copy of it. You get some really wonderful diagrams here of the different markings. You got good assembly, some good tips on how to put on the decals. So, so far, the Durafly manual is really well done. Usually I set the benchmark at the Horizon models as some of the best manuals out there, but this Durafly manual is really well put together. So at least from what I've seen so far, this looks pretty well done. Certainly better than the Dynam, and really even the HobbyKing B17 one was pretty rough at times, but that one looks like a pretty good manual. We got a decal sheets in here. Looks like we got, unfortunately, the staples are sticking out on the back, and that left a couple little marks in the foam, so that's too bad. And the decals, they came a little wrinkled, so shouldn't be too much of a problem because I have decals coming for this from Cali. You do get some really nice nomenclature decals, which I've heard from a lot of other people. They say they're a little difficult to install, and some of them the scale is wrong. I haven't been able to verify that yet, but they are included in here, which I thought was a nice touch. You have the leading edge yellow markings here. You have the I really don't know what to call the stripe that they put on the back. I'm still doing a lot of my research on the Spitfire, so I don't have everything nailed down yet, but these go on the tail. I believe these black stripes here are probably wing walk area stripes on the top. So, and you get a number of different options here for the graphics, which I thought was a very, very nice touch. You got some U.S. markings for the, you got some Eagle Squadron markings as well. We got some British markings, the RAF. We also have the ones with the yellow around it, which I believe that's going to be a Mediterranean scheme. I don't remember if they use the yellow around the national insignia in Britain, but I'm not necessarily an expert on all matters early war before the U.S. involvement, so I'm still learning on that. So we're going to go ahead and move these out of the way. The first thing that you get out of the box that's really kind of a significant part of the airplane is the wing. And I have to say, I mean, just look at that. That is probably the most beautiful wing profile ever designed. R.J. Mitchell was the designer of the Spitfire, and I tell you, they designed a beautiful wing. And if you know your history of the Spitfire at all, unfortunately the wing shape is actually was first developed by a German engineer, in which I believe a Canadian aerodynamicist was studying under at the time. This was pre-World War II, and he took this dual elliptical shape that you see here, and took that to Supermarine when he left to go there. And Supermarine, of course, you wonder why is a company named Supermarine building fighter planes? Well, they used to build really fast float planes for competition prior to World War II. So that's where a lot of their high-speed knowledge came from. Unlike Horizon Hobby airplanes that come with everything installed, you can see that the control horns are here, but the guide wire or the push rods are not installed. So we'll be taking care of that, which should not be a problem either, because I'm probably going to do some painting and weathering, and it's easier if those are gone. It has the retracts are already installed. It also has flaps, which are scale correct. They go all the way on the inboard section here. The Flightline ones do not have that. They're beautifully hinged and open accordingly. Of course, the ailerons, and then you have the navigation lights. So the wing really is one of these elements that really brings a lot of value to the Durafly model. You get the retracts, the scale flaps, and the lights already pre-installed and ready to go. And I think that adds a significant amount of value to the Durafly model that's missing, like if you found an old Parkstone model or even on the E-Flight model. So with the wing out, let's continue digging in here. Looks like we got a number of wires here. Looks like we have some sort of a little control board that everything's plugged into. So far everything looks very well done. The quality of the foam is great. Even the simulated fabric covering over the ailerons looks good as well. So far, I would say A+ job on this B-style Spitfire wing. And the reason why it's a B-style is really has to do with the structure, the internal structure and the armament that was installed on it. So it has a different set of armament and internal structure than the A-style wing, even though the shape is very similar. And I don't really care for a clipped style wing. To me, the wing is one of those beautiful factors of the Spitfire. Alright, next we got a bag full of parts here. We got a spinner that's pre-painted, we got a nose weight, and that's actually probably what retains the prop. It's pretty heavy. Remember, the Spitfire has a real stubby nose on it, and in order to kind of get this plane to balance correctly, they're going to have to add a lot of weight to the nose to kind of simulate that great big Merlin engine out front. So we got a nice bag full of parts there. Got a bag of scale details. The cannons are here, the blisters for the cannons, the exhaust pipes are here. This is actually one version of the exhaust system that the Spitfire had used. They used a number of them kind of to improve the scavenging effect, performance of the engine, as well as kind of flame arresting. A lot of times the Spitfire will spit a good amount of flames out, which is not why it's called the Spitfire. So we got a nice bag of scale parts. I think that's an oil cooler in there as well. Pitot tube, rear view mirror with actual reflective elements. So some pretty nice touches that come along with this kit. Next up we have the elevator assembly, which has a little bit of foam stuck on it, but nothing bad. So again, the quality of the foam looks really good. It's just the packaging is not probably on par with what you'd see from a Horizon Hobby, but I consider they're pretty good at packaging their stuff. But I have no complaints over this. Just a little bit of foam residue here, something was sticking inside here, but not going to be a problem. Once again, you get that real nice elliptical shape. Just such a beautiful airplane. And finally, we have the fuselage, which is another just beautiful. The finish on this is just outstanding. Probably from what you're looking at on the video here, you really can't even tell that this is a foam airplane. The finish quality is just outstanding. It's got a fairly scaled detail cockpit in there. It's got a lot of 3D features to it where it's got some depth to it rather than just being flat across. So that will be I'll probably end up detailing that all up really nicely to kind of give it even some more scale details. We got a navigation beacon on the top here. We got a spot for the radio antenna, which I assume is hiding in here somewhere. It is. Yep, I can see it in there. So push rods are installed, but not necessarily connected here for the rudder. But otherwise, just a beautiful, beautiful plane. You got the brushless motor in there. We got a battery hatch inside here. Plenty of room inside there. Pre-installed. Looks like an Aerostar 30 amp ESC. It's a really, really well done model. This is my first Durafly model I've ever looked at, and I'm very impressed with it so far. And of course, it's just being such a legendary and beautiful airplane, I'm sure it's going to look even better when I get it all done. So another interesting fact about this particular plane is Tom Hunt helped do a lot of the kind of the design and development of this aircraft. And from what I've learned on the RC groups is he really knows his Spitfire knowledge. He understands the marks, he understands how to make them fly, he understands all the ins and outs of the Spitfire. And I'm really excited to have one of his products. He worked on my B-17 as well, and it's a wonderful flying plane. I expect the same thing from this Spitfire. They've done some modifications to the wings to kind of give them a little bit more washout to improve the low speed stability. And then they also, unfortunately, just like the real Spitfire, I would say that Durafly got it so accurate that from what I have heard from documentaries is that the Spitfire is a lady in the air and a bitch on the ground. And unfortunately, that translates into the RC model as well, in which we have some issues with the landing gear that are going to need to be addressed. It has a lot of tendency to tip over on the ground because of the narrow landing gear track, and also kind of nose over too in grass. And we're going to be operating on grass that would be way unscale for a Spitfire. Even though these flew off grass in England, we'd be flying off grass that would probably be in the equivalent of 4 feet tall if it was a real airplane. So that's not going to be very effective. So we got some plans for that a little bit later. But that wraps up the unboxing video of the Durafly Mark 5B Supermarine Spitfire. And I'm really excited to get this in the air. Growing up watching the Battle of Britain as a kid, and having one of my very first models that I remember my dad built for me was a Spitfire Mark 9. I still have that, which means it's probably over 35 years old, and it survived my childhood to be playing with it. So I'm excited to get this thing in the air, excited to kind of relive some of the memorable flight sequences that I grew up with from the movie Battle of Britain, and really kind of do a low pass with a victory roll over my flying field when I get this one done. So stay tuned, because we're going to have a lot more coming on the assembly and modifications we're going to make to this beautiful Spitfire.